order paper.
Private members' business, consideration of motion M-100 on the contribution of co-ops, standing in the name of Ms. Mendès. Ms. Mendès, seconded by Mr. Whalen, moves that in the opinion of the House, the government should recognize the important role cooperatives play in the economy and ensure that they continue to thrive by taking concrete steps such as A. Developing in consultation with provincial and territorial governments, Indigenous communities, and the cooperative sector, a federal cooperative strategy to promote and support Canada's cooperative sector, and B. Providing periodic progress reports on pre-established goals and targets. Debate. The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert.
Colleagues, I'd like to first thank my colleague, the Honourable Member from St. John's East, for seconding this motion.
The purpose of motion M-100, also known as the contribution of cooperatives, is to promote the development and implementation of a strategy to promote and support the co-op sector and mutual sector in Canada. You may wonder why I designed this motion. I'll be very pleased to explain it to you in the coming minutes. First of all, the growth and success of this sector is perfectly in line with the objectives of our government. These objectives will make our country stronger with a more dynamic and diversified economy, and it will create durable and well-paid jobs, high-caliber jobs. This motion will also increase competitiveness by reducing prices for goods and services. The government and I believe that we have an economy that works for the middle class. We have a country that works for all Canadians. The co-ops are often a better vehicle than traditional companies to create an environment to strengthen the middle class and those who work hard to attain it. Mr. Speaker, honourable colleagues, these reasons are why I'm here today to debate and defend this motion.
My belief that of many of my colleagues that the Government of Canada must continue to recognize the important role that cooperatives and mutuals play in the Canadian economy and ensure that the sector continues to thrive. There have been some efforts to recognize that today's cooperative sector is as diverse and innovative as the economy itself. However, these efforts have not been sufficient. Historically, cooperatives have been associated with agriculture and agri-food, whereas today cooperatives have evolved as an innovative model in almost every sector of Canadian and global economies. In 2013, responsibility for cooperatives moved from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to Industry Canada, a move that was meant to reflect how the co-op model has grown, and that also began to consider cooperatives as equals to sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations. This represents modest progress in the way cooperatives and the cooperative model must be supported by the government. Cela dit,
having said that, the change was not accompanied by a mandate to provide coordination and collaboration between departments of different levels of government and or with the co-op sector itself. That also means that the department cannot implement policies that will have a positive impact on the development of co-ops, which will fill deficiencies in our economy and ultimately benefit Canadians from coast to coast to coast. This government has ambitious projects to grow the economy, to help the middle class, and to support those who want to attain it. Industry Canada was renamed and reorganized, now called Innovation, Science and Development. The department is concentrating on its ambitious innovation program. Co-ops will have a role to play in this program, and the adoption of M-100 is a crucial step to ensure that they are part and parcel of that strategy. Cooperatives are innovative by nature. They are born to respond to people's needs and are there to serve the public first and foremost. In my riding of Brossard-Saint-Lambert, excellent co-ops offer essential services that focus on client service. The Co-operatives Sud, for example, offers various services such as house cleaning, meal preparation, errands, laundry, and hairdressing. Since 1997, the number of members of this co-op continues to grow, just as the number of employees does. All the workers are members of the co-op themselves. The users count on the dedication of the 130 worker members in order to provide a better quality of life at home. This is a sustainable model to offer client-focused service.
An example of innovation through a cooperative model is La Guilde Cooperative in Montreal, formed 2 years ago. It is a collective of 72 video games programming boutiques that have grouped together to scale up to compete in a global video game market. Based on a democratic structure and built on a model of non-profit producing cooperatives, La Guilde has equipped itself to respond in a sustainable way to the real needs of independent game developers in Montreal. Using the concept of shared services, these independent creative studios are now a stable, sustainable ecosystem that can build out into an expanding global industry and compete with established giants such as Ubisoft.
By establishing and implementing a framework to promote the development of co-ops and mutuals in Canada, and by fully exploring a strategy for the way co-ops can take part in the group of each region and each emergent sector, we can maximize the positive fallout of the co-op model in Canada. In Quebec, we see the fallout of co-ops on local economies. In the 70s, funeral costs were the highest in Canada and Quebec. To counter this, citizens got organized in a cooperative model, and in the decades that follows, Quebec became the province where funeral services were the least expensive. This is a financial and emotional burden for the vast majority of Canadian families. The Special Committee on Co-ops, presided by my late colleague, the Honorable Maurice Bélanger, cites in its report the University of Sherbrooke, saying that the presence of funeral cooperatives for more than 3 decades has had and continues to have a regulating effect by lowering the cost of funerals by 50%.
Stories would not exist today without the strategic partnership and initiative of the federal government of the time. More than 50 years ago, Arctic Cooperatives Limited began commercializing arts and craft production, fur harvesting, and commercial fisheries. These traditional activities became the core business of the early local cooperatives, which would become a network of 32 community-owned co-ops providing northern peoples with fuel, tourism, food, and employment. Arctic Co-ops is now a successful and internationally recognized example of do-it-yourself community economic development in the Canadian North. As of 2012, Arctic Co-ops ranked 24th in Canada among non-financial co-ops based on total revenues. This success was partially the result of federal encouragement and support. There are many examples of successful models, domestically and internationally, that offer strategic possibilities to fill economic gaps and meet social needs in Canada. This debate is an opportunity to draw the attention to what a national cooperative development strategy might provide for Canadians from all walks of life. Rural and urban, First Nations and Métis, young entrepreneurs, official language minority communities, the growing freelance sector, and new Canadians. Cooperatives offer a point of entry and participation in the innovation economy. The cooperative movement is a global one and offers countless examples of innovative and stable economic development that we must learn from. Canada has not been quite as successful as comparable economies in developing the cooperative and mutual sector for our own domestic benefit. We rank 31st in percentage of GDP generated by our cooperative and mutual sector. In a country where 18 million people are members of a cooperative of mutual, half of the population, and 3.4% of our GDP is attributable to cooperatives, we can do more and we can certainly do better.
We only need to look at countries such as New Zealand, the Netherlands, or France as sources of inspiration. What should be pointed out in these countries is the return of the cooperative model in recent years, especially when it comes to renewable energy, healthcare, and entrepreneurial co-ops that allows professionals to maintain their independence while sharing their resources. Through this motion, I'm continuing the work undertaken by the Honourable Maurice Bélanger, work that deserves our respect since the report of the Special Committee was designed in an essentially cooperative way. If adopted, Motion 100 will give the government the mandate to develop a framework and strategy for the development of cooperatives. This mandate is the catalyst required to follow up on the recommendations formulated by the Special Committee on Cooperatives launched by Maurice some 5 years ago.
You will agree with me that it is time to move forward with recommendations to draft a plan, create a framework, and find a way forward.
This motion continues the work undertaken up till now. The wording of M-100 is specific, and if passed, support of the House of Commons for the development of a strategy seeking to strengthen the co-op economy in Canada will be firmly established. Maurice often says that co-ops, in particular those that start up, face enormous challenges when it comes to financing, and the federal government clearly has a role to play to help them. That's exactly what this motion seeks to do. I want to be clear about some elements of the motion. It seeks to help small and medium-sized cooperatives that may be blocked or that may grow very slowly. It's not meant to help large co-ops like Desjardins, Co-op Fédéré, Federated Co-ops, AgroPure, and so on. These co-ops are solid enough to succeed as businesses and do not need any additional support.
Hand face challenges that regular businesses do not. Access to capital, the lack of a legal framework, and the dismal availability of data and statistics are just a few examples. Who in a cooperative with many involved member owners would take out a loan or mortgage on behalf of the whole cooperative? Which banking institution would lend to a cooperative where it is unclear who would be responsible in the case of the cooperative defaulting? Aussi, les données et l'accessibilité.
Data and access to statistics about co-ops are haphazard and incomplete. If they were centralized, that would represent concrete support for decision-making by leaders of co-ops. The most recent studies and research published on the government website under Policy on Cooperatives are not up to date. The most recent study goes back to 2012, and that series was stopped.
Proposed solutions, I'll just share a few of them with you today as possibilities to consider. One would be to develop a cooperative investment strategy. Two, to ensure equitable access to funding for cooperatives. Three could be to establish a legislative framework to enable financial and non-financial cooperatives to do business and grow the sector, and many, many more. As my time is coming to a close, I strongly encourage my colleagues from all parties to vote in favor of strengthening the cooperative and mutual sector. La motion M-100.
Motion M-100 can provide the necessary mandate for the department to fully explore the opportunities and synergies that could create a stable cooperative economy in all regions of Canada. As parliamentarians, we are elected by our fellow citizens to meet collective needs. When it comes to cooperatives and mutuals, they are never imposed on communities. They are born out of common needs and are democratically sensitive to their members. It's incumbent upon us to give a strong mandate to the public service from all members of Parliament to make this strategy a reality. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, thank you for having listened to this. I am eager to work with you to increase competitiveness and create jobs.
Questions and